Have you ever heard the term kept boy before? It's not something people talk about openly, but in Hollywood, especially in the past, it was a secret way to describe young men who were supported by powerful people. These young men were often given money, gifts, and a lifestyle in exchange for companionship or sometimes more private arrangements. The idea might sound strange or even unfair today, but it was part of a hidden world behind the glamorous life we see on the screen. This hidden world involved power, control, and sometimes fear. The word kept means someone who is taken care of financially by another person, usually in exchange for being close to them. In Hollywood, this often meant an actor, a model, or a young man who was given everything he needed to live comfortably. But the price he paid was to keep the relationship secret and to do what was expected of him. This was especially common in times when being openly gay or bisexual was not accepted in public life or the entertainment industry. Because Hollywood wanted to protect its clean and perfect image, many actors had to hide parts of their personal lives. They couldn't be open about who they loved or how they lived outside of work. Powerful people behind the scenes like producers, directors, or wealthy patrons sometimes made secret deals with these young men. They promised to support them, help their careers, and provide them with money and a place to live. But in return, these young men had to keep quiet and often act according to the wishes of the powerful person. The term kept boy is more than just about money. It shows a relationship based on control and secrecy. It is not just about friendship or love, it is about a hidden contract where one person holds the power and the other person depends on them. This creates a complicated and sometimes painful situation for the young men involved. They might feel trapped, unsure if they can ever live freely or be honest about themselves. For James Dean, the idea of being a kept boy raises many questions. Was he supported by someone powerful in Hollywood? Did he have to hide his true self to succeed? Many rumors and stories suggest that James Dean's personal life was full of secrets. Some say he was involved with people who helped him rise to fame but also controlled him behind the scenes. James Dean's career was short but very intense. He became famous very quickly, and his image as a rebellious and mysterious star fascinated many people. But behind that image there were whispers about his private life. People wondered if he had to play a role not only on screen but also in real life to protect his career. Was he living a double life where the public only saw what was allowed? This secret world of kept boys in Hollywood shows how difficult it was for actors like James Dean to be themselves. They had to balance their dreams and ambitions with the harsh realities of the entertainment business. The fear of being exposed or judged was always there. This fear influenced many decisions they made and the way they lived their lives. Understanding the meaning of being a kept boy helps us see a different side of Hollywood. It was not just a place of glitz and glamour but also a place where power and secrecy ruled. Young actors had to navigate this difficult world carefully. Some managed to escape it while others stayed trapped until their stories became public years later. As you think about this, ask yourself how much of what we see in Hollywood today is still influenced by these old secrets. Are there still people who live hidden lives to protect their careers? The story of James Dean and the idea of being a kept boy opened the door to many questions about fame, identity, and the price some pay to achieve their dreams. Have you ever wondered what made James Dean such a famous and unforgettable star? Even decades after his death, people still talk about him with a kind of fascination that few actors get. His name is linked with rebellion, youth, and a wild spirit that seemed to break all the rules of his time. But why did James Dean's story become so special? What was it about him that made millions of people feel connected to him, even though he was only in a few movies? James Dean was not just an actor, he became a symbol of something bigger. In the 1950s, America was changing fast. Young people were starting to question the old ways, and James Dean seemed to speak their language without even trying. His roles in movies like Rebel Without a Cause showed a young man who was angry, confused, and full of energy. This was different from the usual calm and polite heroes in Hollywood films. People saw James Dean as someone who was real and honest, someone who was not afraid to show his emotions. His acting was fresh and powerful, and he brought new life to the screen. But behind the scenes, his life was also complicated. He was still trying to find his own path while being watched by the world. This tension between who he was and what people wanted him to be made his story more interesting and mysterious. Another reason James Dean became iconic was because his life was so short. He died in a car accident at the age of just 24. This sudden and tragic end froze his image in time. He became a legend, a young star who burned bright and disappeared too soon. People imagined what he might have become if he had lived longer, which made his story even more powerful and sad. But there is more to James Dean than just his movies and early death. Behind his fame, there were many questions about his personal life. Was he truly free to live as he wanted? Did he hide parts of himself from the public because Hollywood demanded it? These questions add layers to his story and make us wonder about the price of fame. James Dean's image was carefully shaped by the Hollywood machine. The studios wanted him to fit a certain mold, a type of star that audiences would love. This meant controlling how he looked, how he acted in public, and even who he spent time with. For someone like James Dean who wanted to express himself honestly, this could have been very difficult. Despite all this, James Dean managed to leave a mark that still matters today. His name is known worldwide, and new generations discover his work and story all the time. His fame goes beyond his films. It is about the feelings and ideas he represented. He was a symbol of youth, rebellion, and the search for identity in a world that tried to limit people. When you think about James Dean, it is important to remember that he was more than just a movie star. He was a young man facing many challenges and pressures, trying to find who he really was. His story invites us to look deeper at what it means to be famous and how much people sacrifice for the spotlight. This curiosity about James Dean's life, both on and off the screen, makes his story never-ending. We keep asking questions, looking for answers, and trying to understand the man behind the legend. This is why James Dean remains one of the most fascinating figures in Hollywood history. Have you ever wondered what goes on behind the bright lights and red carpets of Hollywood? Everyone sees the actors smiling and living glamorous lives, but there are often hidden stories that stay secret for many years. James Dean, one of Hollywood's most famous stars, is no different. His public image was of a cool, rebellious young man, but what about his private life? What secrets did he keep away from the eyes of the world? James Dean's personal life was full of mystery. People have long wondered about who he really was when the cameras stopped rolling. Was he just like the characters he played on screen, or was there something different about him? Some stories say he had relationships that were kept hidden because they were not accepted by society at that time. Back then, Hollywood was a place where many people had to hide their true selves to keep their careers safe. There are whispers and rumors about James Dean's secret life, but very few clear answers. Some say he had close friendships with powerful people who helped him but also expected loyalty and silence in return. Others believe he had relationships that had to remain private because being open about them could have ended his career before it really started. Imagine living a life where you have to pretend every day, where you cannot share your true feelings with anyone. This was the reality for many actors in Hollywood's past. They had to put on a mask, not just for the audience but for everyone around them. For James Dean, this could have been very hard because he was known for being honest and passionate in his acting. How could he keep such big parts of his life hidden? The pressure to hide his true self must have been overwhelming at times. Hollywood in the 1950s was very strict about image. If a star was found to be different from what the public expected, it could ruin their whole career. This made people like James Dean live a double life, one for the public and one for themselves. These hidden parts of James Dean's life make his story even more interesting. We see a young man who was fighting to be himself in a world that did not allow it. The secrets he kept were not just about love or friendship but about survival in a tough and judgmental industry. As you think about this, it raises questions about the cost of fame. How many actors like James Dean had to hide who they really were? How many had to sacrifice their happiness for their careers? These questions make us look deeper at the stories behind the stars and wonder what they might have gone through. James Dean's secret life is a reminder that fame is not always what it seems. Behind the glamour and applause, there can be loneliness and pain. His story helps us understand the complex world of Hollywood and the people who live in it. Have you ever wondered what stories are never told about famous people? Sometimes the real life behind the spotlight is full of secrets that only a few know. James Dean is one of those stars whose life is surrounded by mystery. Everyone remembers him as a young, talented actor who died too soon. But what if there was more to his story? What if his rise to fame was influenced by things no one talks about openly? The world of Hollywood is not just about acting in movies. It is also about power, influence, and hidden agreements. Some people think that James Dean's success was not only because of his talent. There are whispers that powerful people helped him in ways that were never public. This creates a feeling of suspense because we don't know the full truth. James Dean was very young when he became famous, and many people wanted to help him succeed. But behind the scenes, there might have been deals made that came with a price. These deals could have involved keeping secrets or making choices that James Dean did not want to make. It makes us curious about what really happened behind closed doors. Think about the pressure on James Dean. He was just starting his career, already had to navigate a complicated world where everything was not as simple as it looked. Did he have to give up some freedom to stay in the spotlight? Did he have to hide parts of his life to protect his image? These questions make his story even more interesting. The idea that someone's rise to fame can be shaped by hidden forces adds a layer of mystery. It makes us wonder how many other stars have similar stories that we do not know. Hollywood has always been a place where secrets and silence are common. James Dean's story fits into this pattern, making us question what we believe about success and talent. This untold story of James Dean also reminds us that fame is not always fair. Sometimes people have to pay a high price for their dreams. The mystery around his life makes us want to learn more and understand the real person behind the legend. As you think about this, remember that every famous person has a story behind the scenes. Some stories are shared with the world, but many are kept hidden. James Dean's life is a perfect example of how suspense and mystery can stay with us long after the lights go out. Have you ever thought about how some people's stories stay with us long after they are gone? James Dean is one of those people whose life and work still affect many people today. Even though he lived only a short time, his impact is huge. But what happens when we learn new things about someone we admire? How does that change the way we remember them? James Dean's legacy is not just about the movies he made or the cool image he had. It is about the feelings and ideas he inspired. He was a symbol of youth, freedom, and rebellion. Many people saw themselves in him or wanted to be like him. But learning about the challenges he faced and the secrets he kept adds new layers to his story. When we reflect on James Dean's life, we realize that fame is complicated. It can bring happiness and success, but also loneliness and pressure. Understanding his story helps us see the cost of being a star, especially in a world that expects perfection. It makes us wonder if we really know the people we look up to. Thinking about James Dean today also makes us ask questions about how we treat celebrities. Do we respect their privacy? Do we try to understand their struggles? His story teaches us that behind every famous person is a human being with hopes, fears, and mistakes. James Dean's life shows us the importance of being true to ourselves. Even if he had to hide parts of himself, his passion and honesty came through in his work. This is why so many people still connect with him. His story encourages us to be brave and to live authentically, even when it is hard. As we remember James Dean, it is also important to reflect on how Hollywood and society have changed. Are there still pressures that force people to hide who they are? How can we create a world where everyone can be open and accepted? These questions keep his story alive and relevant today. The legacy of James Dean is a mix of admiration and reflection. It reminds us to celebrate talent and courage, but also to look deeper at the costs behind fame. His life story teaches us lessons that go beyond Hollywood and touch on what it means to be human. Have you ever wondered what makes a person's story last forever? James Dean's story is one of those rare tales that people still talk about many years after he died. Even though he lived a very short life, his name is still famous. But why is that? What is it about his story that keeps people interested and curious even today? James Dean became a symbol, not just because of the movies he made, but because of what he represented. He was young, full of energy, and ready to break the rules. Many people saw him as a hero who stood for freedom and being yourself. But when we look closer, we find a story that is not just about fame and fun. It is also about struggle, secrets, and the price of being famous. His legacy is complicated because while he inspired millions, he also faced many challenges that were not easy to see. People admired his courage on screen, but he also had to hide parts of who he really was. This creates a deep curiosity. How can someone so open in their art be so secretive in their personal life? Even today, when people talk about James Dean, they ask questions about the truth behind the legend. What was his real life like? Did he find happiness? How did he deal with all the pressure from Hollywood and fans? These questions show that his story is still alive in our minds, full of mystery and reflection. James Dean's life also makes us think about how fame can affect people. It can give great success but also loneliness and pain. When we look at his story, we remember that behind every famous face is a real person with real problems. This helps us feel more connected to people we admire. Another important part of his legacy is how his story challenges us today. We live in a world where many people still hide who they are because they fear judgment. James Dean's life reminds us that being true to ourselves is important, even if it is difficult. His courage encourages people to live honestly and bravely. Thinking about James Dean also makes us wonder about Hollywood and society. Have things changed since his time? Are people freer now to be themselves? His story pushes us to ask if we are doing enough to accept and support everyone, no matter who they are. The lasting power of James Dean's story comes from this mix of admiration and questions. We celebrate his talent and spirit, but also think about the costs of fame and secrecy. His life is a lesson about the need for honesty, courage, and understanding in a world that often hides the truth. In the end, James Dean is more than just a movie star. He is a symbol of hope and struggle, a person who reminds us to keep searching for truth and to live with passion. His legacy continues because it speaks to something deep inside all of us: the desire to be free, loved, and remembered.